The great chamber buzzed with angry voices. Hundreds of alien beings filled the massive space, their different forms creating a strange mix of colors and shapes. Some stood on two legs like humans, others floated in the air, and a few moved on many legs across the floor. All of them had come here for one reason: to vote on what to do about humans. Ambassador Tai-Ho Kim stood alone at the center of the room. His dark suit looked plain next to the bright colors and strange materials worn by the other beings. He was the only human in a room full of creatures who wanted his entire species gone from the galaxy. His hands shook slightly, but his voice stayed strong as he spoke into the small device that carried his words to every corner of the chamber. "Please listen to me," Tai-Ho said. "Humans have made mistakes, yes. But we have also helped many of you. We fought beside the Altarians when pirates attacked their trade routes. We shared our medical knowledge with the Kepler colonies when the plague hit. We are not monsters." A loud, harsh sound came from the tall, crystal-like being who led the meeting. High Chancellor Vextar rose from his seat, his body catching the light and throwing rainbow patterns across the walls. When he spoke, his voice sounded like breaking glass. "The human speaks of help," Vextar said with a cold laugh. "But what about the destruction they brought to Rigel? What about the billions who died because of their brutal war methods? Humans are too violent, too dangerous to live among civilized beings." Shouts of agreement filled the chamber. A creature that looked like a giant slug with arms waved them in the air. "They use weapons that turn planets into ash," it cried. "No other species fights like they do." Tai-Ho felt his heart sink. 3. Years ago, humans had fought a war with the Rigelian Empire. The Rigelians had attacked human colonies first, killing millions of innocent people. Humans had fought back, and yes, they had won. But the way they won had shocked the galaxy. Human tactics were different from what other species used. They were faster, more creative, and much more deadly. "We only defended ourselves," Tai-Ho said, his voice getting louder. "The Rigelians attacked us first. They killed our children, destroyed our homes. What would any of you have done?" A being made of what looked like living metal stood up. "We would not have used planet-killer weapons," it said in a voice like grinding gears. "We would not have turned their homeworld into a wasteland. Humans fight like wild animals, not like thinking beings." More voices joined in. They called humans warmongers and destroyers. They said humans were a plague upon the galaxy and too primitive to understand peace. Each word hit Tai-Ho like a physical blow. He had spent 5 years trying to build bridges between humans and other species. Now he watched it all fall apart. Far away from the chamber, Captain So-Min Park watched the meeting on a small screen. She sat in the command chair of a human ship called the Indomitable, hidden in the shadow of an asteroid. Her short black hair was pulled back, and her dark eyes were hard as she listened to the alien voices. "Captain," said Dr. Wu Jin Lee, who stood beside her chair, "the vote is about to begin." So-Min nodded but did not speak. Around her, the bridge crew worked quietly at their stations. They were all humans, all skilled in their jobs, and all angry about what they were hearing. These aliens wanted to ban every human from the galaxy. They wanted to treat humans like dangerous criminals. Back in the chamber, the voting began. Each species had a chance to say yes or no to the ban. One by one, they voted to kick humans out of galactic space. The Meridian Collective voted yes. The Void Syndicate voted yes. Even species that humans had helped in the past voted yes. Taeho stood and watched his world fall apart. A few species voted no. The brave Altarians, the small Kepler colonies, and a handful of others. But they were not enough. The final count showed the truth that Taeho had feared. 847 species voted yes. Only 12 voted no. 3 did not vote at all. The motion passes, Vextar announced, and his crystal body seemed to glow brighter with pleasure. All humans must leave galactic space within 72 standard hours. Any human found in our territory after that time will be treated as an invader. The chamber erupted in cheers and strange alien sounds of celebration. Taeho felt like he was drowning in the noise. He had failed. His entire species was now banned from most of the galaxy. "You have made a terrible mistake," Taeho said into his speaking device. The chamber grew quiet for a moment. "You think humans are the problem, but you will learn the truth too late. There are worse things in this galaxy than human weapons." Vextar made a sound like breaking glass again. "Empty threats from a defeated species. Guards, escort the human out." 2 large creatures moved toward Taeho, but he walked away on his own. He would not give them the satisfaction of dragging him out like a criminal. As he left, he heard the aliens already talking about how to divide up the space that humans would leave behind. On the Indomitable, Captain Somin Park turned off the screen. Her crew looked at her, waiting for orders. She had spent 15 years in the human space fleet. She had fought pirates, explored new worlds, and made peace with alien species. Now she was expected to run away and hide like a criminal. "Captain?" asked Dr. Lee. "What are our orders?" So-Min looked around at her crew. These were good people who had served with honor. They did not deserve this shame. No human deserved this treatment. "Set course for the outer rim," she said finally. "We follow the evacuation orders for now." "For now?" asked Lee. So-Min's eyes were cold as space. "For now. But this is not over. They think they know what humans are capable of in war. They have no idea what we can do when we have nothing left to lose." The Indomitable's engines came to life, and the ship moved away from the asteroid. Behind them, the lights of the Galactic Council station grew smaller and smaller. But Captain Park was already making plans. The galaxy had made its choice. Now humans would make theirs. As the ship jumped into hyperspace, carrying them toward an uncertain future, one thing was clear. The real story was just beginning. 6 months had passed since the vote that changed everything. The outer rim of the galaxy was a harsh place, full of dead worlds and empty space. This was where humans now lived, pushed out from the rich worlds they had once called home. But humans were good at surviving in hard places. Jin Woo Choi sat in a dark corner of Terminus Station, a place where the galaxy's outcasts came to trade and hide. The station spun slowly in space, far from any government's control. Here, no one asked questions about who you were or where you came from. Jin Woo had once worn fine clothes and spoken for humanity in grand meeting halls. Now he wore a worn jacket and spoke in whispers. "The news from Sector 7 is bad," said the alien sitting across from him. It looked like a walking tree with too many arms, and its voice sounded like wind through leaves. 3 more colonies have gone silent." Jinwoo nodded and made notes on a small data pad. Since the ban, he had built a network of contacts across the galaxy. Traders, smugglers, and other people who moved in the shadows brought him information. What he was learning made his blood run cold. "Which colonies?" he asked. "The Vegan settlements," the tree being said. the ones who voted against your ban. Meridian collective ships were seen in the area before the silence began. This was the pattern Jin Woo had been tracking. Species that had voted against the human ban, or even just abstained from voting, were having accidents. Their colonies went silent. Their trade ships disappeared. Their governments reported internal problems and then stopped talking to the outside galaxy. Far from Terminus Station, in a hidden facility built into an asteroid, Hai-Jin Nam worked on humanity's future. She was young but brilliant, one of the best engineers her species had ever produced. The laboratory around her was filled with strange machines and glowing screens showing complex diagrams. "The quantum tunnel calculations are almost complete," she said to her assistant, an older man named Tae-woo. "If this works, we can travel between stars faster than anyone else in the galaxy." Tae-woo looked worried. "And if it doesn't work?" Hye-jin smiled grimly. "Then we'll be very dead very quickly. But that's better than slowly dying out here in exile." The project she was working on would revolutionize space travel. Most species used hyperspace drives that were predictable and easy to track. Hye-jin's quantum drives would let ships appear anywhere without warning. For humans hiding in the outer rim, this technology could mean the difference between survival and extinction. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Captain So-min Park read Jin Woo's latest report. The pattern was clear now. The species that had supported humans, or even remained neutral, were being eliminated one by one. The galaxy was being carved up by the same aliens who had voted for the human ban. "They planned this all along," said Dr. Woo-jin Lee, reading over her shoulder. "The ban was never about stopping human violence. It was about removing the only species that could stop them from taking over everything." Commander Dong-sik Yang entered the bridge, his Special Forces uniform still dusty from a recent mission. He was a hard man who had fought in the war with the Rigelians, and his face showed the strain of the past months. "Captain, we've confirmed it," he said. "The Altarian Republic is next. Our scouts report massive fleet movements heading toward their space. They're calling it a protection mission. But we know better." So-min felt anger rise in her chest. The Altarians were a peaceful people who had never hurt anyone. They had voted against the human ban because they believed in fairness and justice. Now they would pay the price for their courage. "How many ships?" she asked. "Over 3,000, Yang replied. "From 6 different species, all working together. The Altarians have maybe 200 ships, and most of those are cargo vessels." "Doctor," Lee shook his head. "It's not a battle. It's a slaughter waiting to happen." On the other side of the galaxy, Young-ho Seo flew his small scout ship through the darkness between stars. He was a pilot, one of the best humans had ever produced, and his job was to watch and report. What he had seen in the past weeks made his stomach sick. The defensive measures against humans had been a lie. Instead of just protecting against human attacks, the alien fleets were building up for conquest. Peaceful worlds were being surrounded by warships. Trade routes were being seized. The galaxy was preparing for war, and humans weren't even invited to the fight. Young-ho's ship was almost invisible to sensors, built with the best stealth technology humans could create. He had watched alien fleets practice attack formations. He had seen weapons that could crack planets loaded onto ships that were supposed to be for defense only. The lies were everywhere. Back on Terminus Station, Jin Woo received a message that made his hands shake. It came from Mi-kyung Jang, a woman, who had once been humanity's ambassador to the Altarian Republic. She had stayed behind when the ban was announced, hiding among the Altarians who still trusted her. The message was short but desperate. They know. The Altarians have discovered the conspiracy, but they can't prove it to the galaxy. Fleet moving toward their homeworld. They're asking for help, but officially, they can't be seen talking to humans. Need response in 12 hours or it's too late. Jinwoo stared at the message for a long time. He thought about the kind Altarian diplomats he had known, people who had always treated humans with respect and friendship. They had stood up for humanity when no one else would. Now they needed help, and humans were the only ones who could give it. But helping the Altarians meant revealing that humans were still active in the galaxy. It meant breaking their exile and risking everything they had built in the Outer Rim. If they were discovered, the alien fleets would hunt them down and destroy them completely. Jinwoo sent the message to Captain Park and then waited. The decision would be hers to make, but he knew what she would choose. Humans had many faults, but they did not abandon their friends. On the Indomitable, So-Min Park gathered her senior officers. The message from Mi Kyung was displayed on the main screen, and everyone could see the impossible choice they faced. "If we help them, we expose ourselves," said Yang. "Every human ship, every hidden base, everything we've built since the ban, they'll hunt us down like animals. And if we don't help them," said Dr. Lee, "we watch our only real allies get destroyed. Then we'll be truly alone." Hyejin's voice came through the communication system from her hidden laboratory. "Captain, the quantum drives are ready for testing. We have 12 ships equipped and ready to go. If we're going to act, now is the time." So-Min looked around the bridge at her crew. These people had followed her into exile without question. They had trusted her to keep them safe and find a way forward. Now she was asking them to risk everything for people who weren't even human. "The Altarians stood with us when no one else would," she said finally. "They voted against the ban knowing it would make them enemies. They're our friends, and friends don't abandon each other." Major Kyung-Min Bae, the leader of the ship's special forces, smiled grimly. "When do we leave, Captain?" "As soon as the quantum drives are installed," So-Min replied. "We're going to show the galaxy what happens when you corner humans and threaten their friends." The bridge erupted in quiet activity as the crew prepared for what might be their last mission. They were vastly outnumbered and far from home. But they were human, and humans had a long history of doing impossible things when their backs were against the wall. In the hidden laboratory, Hyejin watched her quantum drives being loaded onto ships. Each one was a marvel of human engineering, capable of moving through space in ways that would seem like magic to other species. She hoped they would be enough. The fleet that gathered in the shadow of a dead planet was small, but determined. 12 ships against 3,000 seemed like madness. But Captain Park had a plan, and her crew trusted her completely. They would save the Altarians or die trying. As the ships prepared to make the first quantum jump, So-Min Park looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Altarian homeworld waited for salvation or destruction. The galaxy had tried to eliminate humans as a factor in galactic politics. They were about to learn how wrong they had been. Dr. Woo Jin Lee stared at the star charts spread across his desk, trying to make sense of what he was seeing. Red marks showed where species had voted for the human ban. Blue marks showed where those same species now had military fleets. The pattern was clear and terrifying. "It was never about us being too violent," he said to Captain So-Min Park, who stood beside him studying the same charts. "They needed us gone because we were the only ones who could stop this." So-Min traced her finger along the lines connecting the red and blue marks. The species that had voted to ban humans were the same ones now building huge military forces. They had used humanity as the excuse to militarize the entire galaxy. While everyone was focused on the human threat, the real threat had been growing in secret. "They're not just taking over random systems," she said. "Look at this pattern. They're targeting every species that voted against the ban or abstained from voting. It's a systematic takeover." Young-Ho Seo's voice came through the communication system from his scout ship, hidden near the Altarian border. "Captain, you need to see this. I'm sending you the footage now." The main screen lit up with images that made everyone on the bridge go silent. Massive fleets surrounded peaceful worlds. Ships designed for exploration and trade were being destroyed by military vessels. Entire populations were being evacuated to ships that looked more like prison transports than rescue vessels. "How many species are involved in this conspiracy?" asked Commander Dongsik Yang. Dr. Lee pulled up another chart. "At least 6 major civilizations, maybe more. The Meridian Collective, the Void Syndicate, the Crystal Hegemony, the Metal Union, the Gas Giant Federation, and the Deep Space Alliance. Together, they control about 60% of the galaxy's military power. And they all voted for the human ban," So-Min said grimly. The truth was becoming clear. The conspiracy had been in planning for years. The human war with the Rigelians had been the perfect excuse to unite the galaxy against a common enemy. While everyone debated whether humans were too dangerous, the conspirators had been preparing to divide the galaxy among themselves. Mi Kyung, Jang's desperate message had revealed their next target. The Altarian Republic was a peaceful democracy that controlled several important trade routes. They had advanced technology and rich worlds, making them a valuable prize. More importantly, they had voted against the human ban, making them enemies of the new galactic order. The Altarians discovered the conspiracy, So-Min told her officers. They found evidence of secret meetings, shared military plans and agreements to divide their territory after they're eliminated. But they can't prove it to the galaxy because all their evidence was gathered through intelligence operations. Major Kyung-Min Bae, who had been coordinating with human special forces across the galaxy, brought more bad news. "Captain, we've confirmed that 12 species have already been eliminated. Their governments have been replaced by emergency councils controlled by the conspirators. Billions of beings are now living under occupation." The scale of the conspiracy was staggering. While the galaxy had been focused on the human ban, an entire shadow government had been taking shape. The conspirators had been careful to make each takeover look like an internal problem or a natural disaster. Only by putting all the pieces together could you see the real picture. Hee-Jin Nam's voice came from the engineering section of the ship. "Captain, the quantum drives are ready. We can make the jump to Altarian space in 6 hours, but once we do this, there's no going back. They'll know humans are still active in the galaxy." So-Min looked around the bridge at her crew. They were about to break their exile and risk everything for people who weren't even their own species. But the alternative was to watch the galaxy fall to tyrants while humans hid in the outer darkness. "What's our current strength?" she asked Yang. 12 ships with quantum drives, plus about 30 conventional vessels scattered across the outer rim. Total crew of maybe 8,000 people. Against that, the conspirators have over 50,000 ships and millions of crew members. The numbers were hopeless. Humanity's entire remaining fleet was smaller than a single battle group from any major alien power. They would be fighting a war they couldn't possibly win through conventional means. But humans had never fought conventional wars. "What about the other species?" asked Dr. Lee. The ones who voted against the ban or abstained? Can we contact them? Mi-kyung's intelligence network had been trying to reach them, but most were too afraid to respond. They knew what had happened to species that opposed the conspirators. Some had gone into hiding, others had surrendered without a fight, and a few had simply disappeared. The Kepler colonies are still free, but barely, reported Young Ho from his scout position. They've got maybe 50 ships total. The Vegan settlements have gone completely dark. We think they've been taken over. The others are scattered and afraid. So-min made her decision. We can't save everyone, but we can save the Altarians. And maybe if we do this right, we can expose the conspiracy to the galaxy. Once people see the truth, they might find the courage to fight back. The plan was desperate, but simple. The human fleet would use their quantum drives to appear without, warning in Altarian space. They would engage the conspiracy fleets in battle, recording everything for broadcast across the galaxy. Even if they were destroyed, the footage would prove that humans were not the real threat. The quantum drives will give us the advantage of surprise, explained Hyejin over the communication system. We can appear anywhere instantly, strike hard, and disappear before they can respond effectively. But the drives are new technology. We don't know how long they'll work under combat stress. Dr. Lee was already working on the information warfare aspect of the plan. If we can capture even one conspiracy ship and access their communication logs, we'll have proof of their coordination. That evidence, combined with battle footage, should be enough to wake up the galaxy. Major Bay was coordinating with the Special Forces teams that would board enemy ships and rescue Altarian civilians. We'll need to work fast. Once the shooting starts, they'll try to destroy any evidence of their conspiracy. We have to grab what we can before they realize what's happening. Commander Yang was studying tactical reports from Young Ho's reconnaissance missions. The good news is that they're not expecting any real resistance. Their fleets are positioned for intimidation and occupation, not for fighting. If we hit them hard and fast, we can cause maximum damage before they adapt. As the human fleet prepared for battle, Captain Park received one more message from Mi-kyung on Altaria Prime. The Altarian government was preparing for the worst, but they had agreed to help document whatever happened. Altarian civilians would be evacuating to underground shelters, while their remaining military would try to coordinate with the human rescue effort. "Tell them we're coming," So-min replied. "Tell them that humans don't abandon their friends." Though 12 ships with quantum drives formed up in the darkness between stars. Each one was loaded with the best weapons and equipment humanity could provide. The crews were volunteers, people who knew they might not survive but were determined to try anyway. As the countdown to the quantum jump began, So-min Park thought about the path that had brought them here. 6 months ago, they had been exiles, driven from their homes by a galaxy that called them too violent. Now they were about to prove that sometimes violence was the only answer to tyranny. "All ships report ready," came the voice from the navigation officer. "Then let's show them what humans do when their friends are in danger," So-min said. "Execute quantum jump in 3, 2, 1. The stars vanished as the human fleet disappeared into quantum tunnels, racing toward a battle that would determine the fate of the galaxy. Behind them, the outer rim fell silent again. Ahead of them, the Altarian homeworld waited for salvation or destruction. The galaxy had tried to eliminate humans as a factor in galactic politics. They were about to discover that humans were still very much a factor indeed. The quantum tunnels collapsed, and 12 human ships appeared in Altarian space like ghosts materializing from nothing. Fleet Admiral Jae Sung-ko, who had taken command of the rescue mission, stared at his main screen in horror. The conspiracy fleet was even larger than their intelligence had suggested. "Count them," he ordered his sensors officer. "Sir, I'm reading over 4,000 ships," came the shaky reply. "They've got the entire planet surrounded. Through the viewports of the human ships, the crews could see the beautiful blue and green world of Alteria Prime. It looked so peaceful from space, but the sensors told a different story. Cities were burning, the orbital stations were dark and lifeless, and everywhere alien warships prowled like hungry sharks." Wing Leader Eunjung Lim launched her fighter squadron from the carrier Defiance, her voice calm despite the impossible odds. "All fighters. This is Phoenix Leader. We're outnumbered about 300 to 1, so let's try to make this interesting." The human fighters were small and fast, designed for hit-and-run tactics that other species found difficult to counter. As they spread out around the fleet, their pilots could see the conspiracy ships up close. These weren't exploration vessels or peaceful traders. These were ships built for war and conquest, Chief Petty Officer Insu Kang manning the weapons. Stationed on the Indomitable, watched his targeting systems light up with enemy contacts. "Captain Park, I've never seen so many targets in my life. Where do we even start?" So Min Park's voice came over the fleet communication channel, steady and determined. "All ships, this is Admiral Park. You know why we're here. The Altarians stood with us when no one else would. Today we stand with them. Record everything. The galaxy needs to see what's really happening here." Lieutenant Nari, the communications officer, was already broadcasting on all frequencies. Her job was to make sure that every word, every image of the coming battle would be transmitted across the galaxy. The conspiracy fleets were jamming most communications, but human quantum transmitters could punch through almost any interference. "Broadcasting on all channels," she reported. "The whole galaxy will see this." The alien fleets had been conducting what they called a humanitarian evacuation, but the human sensors revealed the truth. Population centers were being systematically destroyed. The beautiful gardens and cities of Alteria Prime were burning, while the aliens cataloged and stole everything of value they could find. Admiral Ko watched the tactical display and felt his anger grow. "Look at them," he said to his officers. "They're not even trying to preserve civilian areas. They're just taking what they want and destroying the rest." Young Ho Seo, flying reconnaissance in his stealth fighter, transmitted real-time intelligence back to the fleet. "Admiral, they've got concentration camps set up on the southern continent. Looks like they're sorting the population. Skilled workers in one area, everyone else in another." The implications were clear and horrifying. This wasn't a military occupation or even a conquest. This was the systematic destruction of an entire civilization, carried out under the pretense of galactic law and order. "All ships, engage at will," Admiral Ko ordered. "Primary targets are the ships attacking civilian areas. Secondary targets are command vessels. Remember, we're here to save lives, not just fight a battle." The human attack began with the kind of precision that had made other species call them too violent for civilized warfare. Instead of charging straight at the enemy in formation like most species did, the human ships scattered and attacked from dozens of different angles simultaneously. Eunjung led her fighters in a complex weaving pattern that confused the alien. Targeting systems. Human pilots had trained for years to fight as individuals while still coordinating as a unit. Their attack patterns looked like chaos to the aliens, but every move was calculated and precise. "Phoenix Squadron, target the ships." "Bombarding the capital city," she ordered. "Lightning Squadron, take the orbital bombardment platforms. Thunder Squadron, cover the rescue ships." The aliens had been expecting an easy operation against a defenseless world. They weren't prepared for human combat tactics that had been developed during the brutal war with the Rigelians. Human ships appeared and disappeared like phantoms, striking hard and vanishing before the aliens could respond effectively. Insu Kang's weapons blazed as the Indomitable tore through a formation of conspiracy cruisers. The human ships' shields flared as enemy fire struck them, but their quantum drives allowed them to jump away and reappear somewhere else before the aliens could concentrate their fire. Direct hit on their command ship, Insu reported with satisfaction. Their formation is breaking up, but the human fleet was paying a price for their aggressive tactics. The Determination took a direct hit from an alien dreadnought and exploded. In a ball of fire, the Resolution's engines failed after a quantum jump, leaving her drifting helplessly until enemy fire finished her off. "We've lost 2 ships," reported the tactical officer grimly. Admiral Ko felt each loss like a personal blow. But he couldn't let emotion cloud his judgment. "Continue the attack. Focus on the ships threatening Altarian civilians." Major Kyung-min Bae led Special Forces teams in small, fast ships toward the surface of Altaria Prime. Their job was to extract as many Altarian civilians as possible, while the fleet kept the conspiracy ships busy. It was dangerous work. They had to dodge both alien weapons and debris from the battle overhead. "Landing Team Alpha is down safely," Bae reported. "We've made contact with Altarian resistance forces. They've got about 3 million civilians ready for evacuation. But we need more time." Time was the one thing the human fleet didn't have. For every alien ship they destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. The conspiracy forces were finally organizing themselves and bringing their massive numerical advantage to bear. "Admiral," called the sensors officer, "enemy reinforcements incoming. Looks like another 1,000 ships jumping in from hyperspace." The battle had been raging for 18 hours, and the human fleet was running out of ships, ammunition, and luck. But they had accomplished something important. They had saved millions of Altarian lives and recorded everything for the galaxy to see. Young Ho's voice came over the communication channel, strained with exhaustion. "Admiral, I'm picking up massive data transmissions from the alien command ships. Looks like they're trying to destroy their communication logs before anyone can capture them." This was the moment Dr. Lee had warned them about. Once the conspiracy realized that their secret was being exposed, they would destroy any evidence of their coordination. The human fleet had to capture that evidence before it was too late. "All ships, priority target shift," Admiral Ko ordered. "Focus on the command vessels. We need to capture their data banks intact." The Indomitable, badly damaged but still fighting, made one last desperate charge toward the alien flagship. So-Min Park knew it was probably a suicide run, but the data in that ship could expose the entire conspiracy to the galaxy. "This is Admiral Park to all human vessels," she broadcast on the fleet channel. "It's been an honor serving with all of you. Whatever happens next, remember that we came here to save our friends. We didn't let them down." The quantum drives on 3 human ships failed simultaneously, leaving them vulnerable to concentrated alien fire. The Vigilant died trying to ram an alien dreadnought. The Courage went down fighting, her guns blazing until the very end. But the sacrifice wasn't in vain. Major Bay's evacuation ships were escaping with millions of Altarian refugees. The battle. Footage was being transmitted across the galaxy in real time. And most importantly, Lieutenant O had managed to hack into the alien communication networks and download terabytes of data proving the conspiracy. "Admiral, we've got what we came for," O reported. "All the evidence we need is being uploaded to quantum transmitters. Even if we don't make it out, the galaxy will know the truth." As the human fleet prepared to retreat, Admiral Ko looked around at what remained of his command. Of the 12 ships that had entered Altarian space, only 4 were still capable of fighting. They had saved millions of lives and exposed a conspiracy that threatened the entire galaxy, but the cost had been terrible. "All surviving ships, prepare for emergency quantum jump," he ordered. "We've done what we came to do." The 4 remaining human ships vanished into quantum tunnels, carrying their precious cargo of refugees and evidence. Behind them, Altaria Prime burned while the conspiracy fleet celebrated their victory over the human aggressors. But across the galaxy, on 1,000 worlds and 1,000,000 screens, beings were watching footage of the battle and beginning to understand the truth. The humans hadn't been the aggressors at all. They had been the only ones brave enough to fight back against the real threat. The conspiracy had won the battle, but they were about to lose something far more important. They were about to lose their secret, and with it, their power over a galaxy that was finally beginning to see them for what they really were. 3 days after the Battle of Altaria Prime, Jinwoo Choi activated the largest information network in galactic history. From his hidden base on Terminus Station, quantum transmissions carried the truth to every inhabited world simultaneously. The footage and data from the battle spread across the galaxy like wildfire, impossible to stop or contain. On 1,000 worlds, beings gathered around screens to watch the incredible story unfold. They saw human ships appearing from nowhere to defend a peaceful planet. They saw alien fleets systematically destroying cities and herding civilians into camps. Most shocking of all, they saw the intercepted communications that proved the entire conspiracy. Dr. Soo-jung An, a human xenopsychologist who had been monitoring galactic communications from exile, watched the reactions with amazement. "Jinwoo, you need to see this," she called excitedly. "The response is beyond anything we hoped for." On her screens, reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The Kepler colonies were broadcasting the footage on every channel. The remaining free species were sharing it through their networks. Even some of the conspiracy worlds were seeing the truth as their own citizens smuggled the data past government censors. Senator Gi-tae Yoon, the former human politician who had been coordinating with resistance groups, received messages from dozens of species. Many of them had voted for the human ban not out of hatred, but out of fear of what would happen if they opposed the conspiracy. "They're admitting it," he told Captain So-min Park over a secure quantum channel. "Species after species is coming forward to say they were threatened, bribed, or blackmailed into voting against humans. The vote wasn't legitimate at all. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. The battle footage showed human forces going out of their way to avoid civilian casualties, even when it put them at greater risk. It showed them focusing their attacks on ships that were bombarding cities, not on military targets that would have been easier to destroy. In contrast, the alien conspiracy forces were shown systematically destroying everything of cultural or historical value on Altaria Prime. They weren't just conquering the planet, they were erasing an entire civilization from existence. Captain Hanul Bayek, commanding the rescue ship New Hope, arrived at a human refugee station with thousands of Altarian survivors. Their testimonies added even more proof to the growing mountain of evidence. The Altarians spoke of months of secret preparations, of alien fleets gathering in hidden bases, of plans to divide their territory among the conspirators after their government was eliminated. "They weren't trying to evacuate us," said an Altarian, child who had lost her parents in the attack. They were sorting us like animals. The smart ones went to one place, everyone else to another. They were going to make us slaves. The galactic response was swift and dramatic. On the conspiracy worlds themselves, citizens began demanding answers from their governments. How could their fleets work together so perfectly if this wasn't planned in advance? Why were their ships loaded with conquest weapons if this was just a defensive operation? High Chancellor Vextar, the crystalline being who had led the vote against humans, tried to dismiss the footage as clever human propaganda. But when Senator Yoon presented communication logs showing Vextar coordinating with 5 other species months before the human ban vote, the crystal being's lies shattered like his body would under pressure. "The evidence is clear," Yoon announced to an emergency session of the Galactic Council. The human ban was not about protecting the galaxy from violence. It was about removing the only species capable of stopping a coordinated takeover of galactic civilization. The communication logs were devastating. They showed conspiracy leaders discussing which species to eliminate first, how to divide their territory, and how to use the human ban as cover for massive military buildup. They had planned everything in advance, using humanity as a scapegoat. While they prepared to enslave the galaxy, more species came forward with their own evidence. The Vegan settlements had been threatened with economic sanctions if they didn't vote for the ban. The small trader guilds had been promised better contracts if they supported it. The peaceful scientific colonies had been told that opposing it would result in reduced protection from pirates and raiders. Dr. On's analysis of the psychological warfare was particularly damning. "They used humanity's reputation from the Rigelian War against us," she explained to the council. "They took our most effective military tactics and presented them as evidence of barbarism, when in reality, those same tactics saved billions of lives by ending the war quickly." The truth about the Rigelian War was also coming to light. New evidence showed that the Rigelians had been encouraged to attack human colonies by the same conspiracy forces. The plan had been to create a conflict that would make humans look like dangerous aggressors, setting up the eventual ban vote. "They played us all," admitted a representative from the Kepler colonies. "They made us afraid of the wrong enemy while the real threat grew stronger in secret." The vote to reverse the human ban was held exactly 1 week after the battle footage was released. This time, there was no coercion or secret threats. Species voted freely, based on the evidence they had seen with their own eyes. The result was overwhelming. 823 species voted to reverse the ban. Only 31 voted to maintain it. The conspiracy was broken. Its leaders facing arrest warrants from dozens of worlds, its fleets scattered and demoralized. Captain So-Min Park stood once again in the great chamber of the Galactic Council. But this time the atmosphere was completely different. Instead of angry voices demanding human exile, there were cheers and applause as she took the podium. "6 months ago, you voted to ban humanity from galactic space," she began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "You called us too violent, too dangerous to live among civilized beings. Today, I stand before you not to demand apologies, but to offer partnership in rebuilding what was damaged." Her words surprised many in the audience. After everything that had happened, they expected humans to be angry, to demand revenge or compensation. Instead, Captain Park spoke of cooperation and mutual support. "The galaxy faces many challenges," she continued. "Worlds have been devastated, governments have been corrupted, and trust has been broken. Humans don't seek to dominate or control. We seek to serve alongside our friends in making the galaxy a safer place for all species." The response was immediate and positive. Species after species rose to pledge support for human reintegration into galactic society. The Altarians, speaking, through their rescued government officials, offered to share their homeworld with human refugees. The Kepler colonies proposed joint defense treaties. Even former enemies offered to make amends. But the most important change was in how humans were perceived. The battle footage had shown the galaxy what human violence really meant when it was directed at evil instead of used for conquest. They had seen humans sacrifice their own lives to save alien civilians, fighting against impossible odds with no hope of victory except the knowledge that they were doing the right thing. Young Ho, CO now promoted to squadron leader, established the first mixed-species pilot training program. Human combat techniques, once seen as too brutal for civilized warfare, were now recognized as necessary tools for fighting tyranny and oppression. Hyejin Nam's quantum drive technology was shared freely with allied species, revolutionizing galactic transportation and making it much harder for any single group to dominate space lanes. Her research facility became a joint project with scientists from dozens of worlds working together. Dr. Woo Jin Lee established new diplomatic protocols designed to prevent any species or alliance from accumulating too much power in secret. The Lee protocols required transparency in military buildup and made secret alliances between major powers illegal under galactic law. 1 year after the battle, a memorial was built on New Geneva, the world that had become humanity's capital, during their exile. But the memorial wasn't just for human losses. It honored all the victims of the conspiracy: Altarian civilians, human soldiers, and the millions of beings from other species who had suffered under the conspiracy's rule. The inscription on the memorial was simple but powerful. In memory of those who stood against the darkness and those who paid the price for others' silence. Captain Park, now Admiral Park, and serving as humanity's representative to the reformed Galactic Council, often visited the memorial. She would stand there thinking about how quickly things had changed and how easily they could change again. If people stopped being vigilant, the galaxy had learned an important lesson from the human ban and its aftermath. Sometimes the greatest threat comes not from those who fight openly, but from those who manipulate others into fighting the wrong battles. Sometimes the people you call too violent are actually the only ones willing to stand up to real violence. Most importantly, the galaxy had learned that diversity of thought and approach wasn't a weakness to be eliminated, but a strength to be preserved. Human military tactics, once seen as barbaric, were now understood as one of many tools needed to maintain peace and freedom. The conspiracy leaders were eventually tried and convicted, their fleets disbanded, their secret bases destroyed. But the real victory wasn't in their punishment. It was in the new galaxy.